people of tomorrow. The key was hidden from the eyes of the world and is now found again by the purest of heart. The sacred guardians of the key were appointed by nature itself to protect the machine and guard its sacred purpose, until a time came when humankind needed its power once more.
4 billion people today on Earth don't have access to basic health care.
There's a tremendous need and shortage of physicians everywhere.
In the developing world, there's just not enough healthcare workers, or the distances are too great and the population's too dispersed.
We're still using tools that really haven't changed in decades. But now in our age of digital and mobile health, what if we could connect those together and put those in the hands of each of us, the consumer, the patient?
A lot of chronic conditions can be managed on a continuous basis if we deploy the technology.
But what we weren't seeing was a catalyst that brought everybody together to build the whole system and to make it easy for a consumer or a lightly skilled healthcare professional to use.
When you have a prize that's sort of audacious but achievable, the competition element speeds up the whole process, creates a fire.
The Qualcomm Tricorder X Prize. Our goal is really to bring the tricorder technology of Star Trek to life.
The doctor just waved the box over you and you knew what was going on.
Star Trek is a positive vision of the future where technology empowers man.
If you want to talk a little bit more about the medical technologies, you alluded to a device or more than one device that you had that can cure diabetes and other things. Could you talk a little bit more about that? Because so many people out here, we all know someone who's sick from something major, if not multiple people in our families. We've all lost loved ones to deadly diseases and such. So any hope that can be given that it doesn't have to be that way, that technologies exist to cure some of these diseases, well, that's really inspiring information. Could you talk a little bit more about your device?
Yeah, there's many devices, and there's many regenerative clinics all around the planet. Unfortunately, when a scientist or a physician, a surgeon comes up with a great idea and he invents something, he gets really suppressed, by the FDA and the patent attorney's office. So it's hard in the United States to, really come out with some amazing things. However, go over to Europe and Asia and down to South America and Mexico, that's a whole other ballgame, because it's not as stringent down there. So technologies that people invent usually are kept out of the United States of America. One of the technologies I believe in is the Scanner Cosmetic device by LAT Medical that was issued to me as an astronaut. All the astronauts had them. And these devices work like a rice machine with frequencies and whatnot. I'm not going to get into the science because you guys would have to stay with me for like 30 days. But it's a very simple thing. Just like in Star Trek, when Bones waves it over your forehead and heals your brain, everything's good to go.
You feel a connection between the world that Star Trek promotes and the people that see a technology that's only suggested in Star Trek and then make it real and then make it better. If this tricorder device can save lives, what a blessing for all of us.
Live long and prosper.
Just like this, using this Scanner Cosmetic energy. And, these things now are being shipped from overseas to the United States of America. And because of where it comes from, they know the address that if anything comes from this corporation, it gets confiscated. They take the chip out of it, and then they send it to you like nothing happened. And now you're just stuck with a electrical stimulator device, that just kind of buzzes on your body and doesn't really do anything. So, it's all being suppressed here. So you might have to go to other countries to actually get good health care.
The greatest medical scientific genius of the last century, and maybe of the last couple centuries, and maybe beyond that. And his name, of course, is Royal Raymond Rife. That's R-I-F-E. Now, just imagine, if you would, for a moment, everyone out there, just imagine this. You've spent more than 2 decades in painfully laborious research in your own little laboratory, and that you have finally discovered an incredibly simple electronic approach to curing literally every infectious disease on the planet caused by viruses and bacteria and other microorganisms. Indeed, this would be a discovery that the world would hail you as the man or the woman who had ended pain and suffering of countless millions and changed the lives on the planet Earth forever, right? Certainly the medical community would rush to embrace you with every imaginable accolade and financial reward that you could think of. That would be what you would expect, wouldn't it? Well, unfortunately, and as I said earlier, arguably the greatest medical genius in all of recorded history suffered a fate literally the opposite of the foregoing logical scenario. In fact, of course, the history of what they call modern medicine is replete with stories of genius betrayed by backward thought and jealousy, but most pathetically by greed and money.
I'm making this video to show that the right frequencies, the fundamental frequencies at 3.1 megahertz, and the dot that you see appearing, if you look very closely, is as it sweeps by Rife's frequency, and the sweep range is from 50 hertz to 150 kilohertz. So as you can see, is when it starts to generate, it generates all kinds of sidebands, which, by the way, are in Rife's frequencies, which is in the radio band. None of Rife's frequencies were ever in the audio range, so if you think they are, you're making a big mistake, and the transmitter must put this out, or you're not going to get it.
This is the BEDINI RPX sideband generator, and this is a product that he recently created and actually open sourced. There is a BEDINI, if you go to BEDINIRPXbook.com, you can get a book and a 2 DVD set which will walk you through exactly what this is about, and this is the most important, most accurate, authoritative historical disclosure on really what Rife was doing, what the Rife machine was about, what the Rife frequency is about, and its method of operation. Majority of all the information on the internet is either flawed or misinformation and really doesn't have anything to do with what Rife was doing.
So the team has to be able to develop a tricorder device that is less than 5 pounds. It's able to diagnose up to 13 medical conditions, take 5 vital signs continuously, and they have a very positive user experience.
Now we're really taking the technology out of the sole possession of physicians and putting them into the hands of the community.
Tricorder will connect hospital care to home care.
We are putting your health back in your own hands.
If you're an EMT or if you're a healthcare professional or a mom, what you lack to make better decisions is data.
Most medical devices that exist today are developed for healthcare professionals, and they diagnose a specific condition, and that's it. So this is a first-to-the-world application of these devices.
This device monitors respiratory rate, blood oxygen levels,
ECG, respiration, temperature,
sleep apnea, atrial fibrillation,
anemia or Hep A,
blood pressure.
This prize is extremely challenging.
It's been a struggle. Everybody is working on their real full-time jobs, and this is still just a part-time endeavor.
We're a very small company, but yet we're a very enthusiastic team.
We've got MDs, we've got data scientists, we've got biochemists, we've got program managers.
We are a full-stack company. We're a machine here. You know, we're a machine building machines.
Teams have contributed thousands of hours of R&D and millions of dollars of funding to support their prototype development.
This is the last couple years of iterations of different designs.
We're building something that no one's ever built before.
This is our first prototype, testing software algorithm in the hospital.
The system consists of 5 subsystems.
This is our blood test system, and I will show you the blood test here.
This is a vitality necklace. This is the foundation of our platform.
Hi, my name's Emery Smith. I'm 46 years old. I was in the United States Air Force for 5.5 years, active duty, and reserve for 2 years and inactive for another 2 years. And in and out of different types of projects as a civilian after that because of my clearance and because of the job I held with them and other corporations that were funded by the government. I joined the military when I was 18 years old. I was in auxiliary of the Air Force when I was 13, and also was in Army ROTC before that. I was in the military for about 5.5 years active duty. I did another 2.5 years of reserve and then another 2 years of inactive. And that's kind of how I got started with the United States Air Force, and also these compartmentalized projects, moonlighting in the evenings while being active duty and working for these underground labs that were owned by major corporations that were renting and leasing places on the base to do this type of work. And a lot of these were, of course, underground facilities. It was mostly tissue specimen examination and dissecting and taking parts of specimens. And I've done over 3,000 different specimens, not whole bodies, but you know, just different parts of body tissues and whatnot to send for testing. They were testing everything. I wasn't really allowed to, in the early years, know anything about what I was dissecting. All I know is I had to go in there, take this part of this tissue, or dissect this nerve, or take this blood sample from this this specimen, and then send it away for testing.
Here with us tonight to talk about Royal Raymond Rife and his absolutely astonishing genius is another wizard, my friend John Bedini. Welcome back, John.
Hi, Jeff. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. It's great to have you back on the program again, as always. This man, to this day, continues to be, I'll bet if we asked 100 Americans on the street, less than 1 out of 100 would know who Rife is. Or
that's correct.
Would even admit ever having heard his name.
That's correct.
Probably the most important man in modern medicine, and yet no Americans know who he is. It is a natural story for a magnificent Hollywood motion picture, a motion picture that should have been made decades ago, but may never be made, or at least may not be made for a long time. And if it is made, good luck on distribution, because it would literally shake to the very foundations the original Rockefeller medical pharmaceutical cartel that set up business in the last part of the 19th century, and then right on through the 20th, and continues to dominate us to this day, cutting, slashing, burning, and poisoning Americans and people around the world in uncountable numbers. Royal Rife, had he been able to prevail with his genius, we wouldn't see hardly any illness at all today. And I guess that's maybe oversimplifying it, but not too much, is it, John?
So, transmitter's a MOPA down here. Alright. And the master power oscillator, and of course the tube is an H-gas tube at the top. The Fanatron tube now changes the frequency, so you must adjust the transmitter and the audio to run the Fanatron, since the spacing is much different. This is an original MOPA that I first designed in 2000, and I've modified the audio amplifier to do this and run with the MOPA. Now, what you'll notice is there's your fundamental frequency. See, it's right at 3.1 center. And as you apply the audio, it shifts the oscillator a little bit. So what you want to do is bring it back towards just a little above 3001 or 3.1 megahertz, excuse me. And you must generate these bands. If you don't generate these bands, you do not have a real Rife machine.
Now, when John came out with these sideband generators, and on sidebandgenerator.com, there's a short video that I posted there of John showing what these sidebands are on his frequency analyzer, so you can see exactly how it operates, and that's evidence that you're really working with the Rife type technology. And this particular one is using a fundamental frequency of 3.1 megahertz, which is 3.1 million cycles per second. And he made a couple different ones, like a 3.3 megahertz and a couple different variations. And he even offered those. The reason I never offered those is because John told me personally and directly, and was showing me that the strongest sidebands are 3.1 megahertz, and that's the only one that's needed, and it's pretty much the only one that he would use. He only offered the other ones because people wanted the other options, but the so-called Rife frequencies that are hit in the sidebands are not as strong if you use a different fundamental, and so that's why we are only dealing with a 3.1 megahertz fundamental.
The era of just putting blind trust in the medical profession is over, and that's a great thing. Working in the ER is what I do. The majority of patients really are just looking for a diagnosis, looking for medical advice, people that don't have anywhere else to turn. If they had this at home, I mean, it would help 90% of the cases that come to the emergency room. The tricorder that we're developing for this competition, it's more advanced than the tricorder from the Star Trek series. This is hundreds of years in the future from what we're developing. Oh, the top buttons. Oh, nice. That's cool. And they got 3 LEDs, and we only have 2. Our team is really a family affair. Initially, it was just myself and my brother. We realized we need some broader skill sets to really get this done. My other brother's a practicing urologist and an electrical engineer, and my sister's a health policy guru, and bringing in friends that are experts in mobile technology, user experience design.
He has a vision for where this is going, and that really gives us the energy to get this to the end.
Working in the ER, it's been critical in developing this device. We have to get to a diagnosis quickly. You know, we broke down that process of all the diagnostic steps. We took that apart and we coded it, and that's the brain of our system. It's really the art and science of medicine mingling together. This tricorder, coming from science fiction into reality, is amazing. This is the wave of the future. There's going to be tons of these kinds of devices on the market. All of our team members have full-time jobs doing something else. So what we can scrap together on my kitchen table and in my den is what we're putting together. But don't underestimate that. We're going to get this done.
Okay. Are you ready to go home?
He may be leaving his best friend, but for AJ, there will be no more hospital beds.
Watching his body decline while his mind kept going, I had to make hard decisions.
AJ was diagnosed with brain cancer in September of 2007. In February of 2008, he was cancer-free. But on July 3rd, 2010, the cancer would come back.
So little awareness about childhood cancer. Every school day, 46 children are diagnosed. AJ was that twice. Every school day, 7 of those kids will die. And AJ is going to be one of them 7 soon.
Dad.
From the outside, AJ is very fragile, but on the inside, you can tell there's an everyday 10-year-old. No one understands that better than his best friend, Mark Kelly.
I have leukemia, and that's really hard. But with brain cancer, one of the deadliest cancers, I can't even believe he lived a month. That's how strong he is.
That means looking into the body, you know, doing more scientific research on, you know, we have an amazing device, this body. It can heal itself if it's running at the right voltage. You know, if you're taking, you know, good things into your body that actually, you know, allow that. voltage to get to where it's supposed to be at. Then the body can cure anything on its own, believe it or not. I'm coming out with this supplement, Zeta RX, and it has to do with increasing zeta waves, alpha waves, and delta waves, and getting the body into the right voltage so it can cure itself, and also increasing your consciousness and IQ. Like, there's a lot of these biohacking little supplements out there, and there's all these talk about, increasing IQ. That's all great. But how about I give you something that's all natural herbal? It's just the synergistic qualities and the percentages of these mixed together create a great frequency that can do something else, such as, getting you to see into the future a few seconds, and getting you to be more aware of your surroundings, getting you to allow you to do 20 different things at once, and at the same time, in stressful situations, lowering your anxiety. So these things are out there, and people are coming forward, and this is going to be a nutraceutical, not a pharmaceutical. And there's more coming forward as far as the technologies. You can research these technologies online. There's many different ones. I've shared it with many different agencies and different medical corporations. And you want to look up platelet-rich plasma. You want to look up stem cells, autologous, by the way. That means it comes from your own body. So your body has everything it needs to be equipped to fix itself. The reason it can't equip itself and fix it all the time is because of the energies around us, and where you live. Like I said, all the contaminants that are around you are breaking our fields down and lowering our immune systems. But there's a way through all the advent of concentrating your own body's natural healing properties and putting it into a part of the body that's diseased, and using things like ozone gas and eating, using green juices to fight off cancer, raising the oxygen into the body to fight off these cancers and things, and basically utilizing what you're already equipped with through technology.
What I wanted to explain to everybody is this work entails about 22 years of research, and the research was conducted at my lab, at my own expense, with all the equipment and everything. Of course, Crane was part of this at the time, and so was Dr. Robert Strecker. And Dr. Strecker and myself and a team of people, what we really wanted to know was, was this whole story true? Dr. Strecker, and let me just give a little background about how I met Dr. Strecker, sort of a funny story. I was with a partner in my company, and we had this Russian friend who was doing jewelry over in a shop like about 10 miles away from us. And so I just went with him one day, and I was sitting in there, and something popped up on the radio, and it said AIDS. Right away, the government was right there with the AIDS thing, about be careful what you do here. And I just blurted out of nowhere, I said, I'll bet you they created it. That was the first thing that came right off the top of my head. And a little voice from the background says, "You're absolutely right." That's exactly how I heard it. And that was Robert Strecker. And I was visiting. I went off to a machine shop to get a die made to cut the tops off these transistors, because I was working on these transistors. And that's Strecker's actual voice. I learned to sort of sound just like him, in what he blurted out. But I said, I'll bet you that the government made that. And he said, "You're absolutely right." Yeah, this center line right here is 3.1 megahertz. And you can see the little dots floating here. And that's indicating that the oscillator is wobbling. Now, this is pretty common for for the MOPA, which is the Master Power Oscillator Amplifier. So as you can see here, as I tune the MOPA, I can shift the frequency where I want it. So we want it about 3.1 because we want the most sidebands generated. So now, if we generate some sidebands here by turning the sweep oscillators on, you can see how it generates these bands. Now the frequency is going to end up being over here, right in this range here. So I'll set that and I'll come back.
So basically what we're going to do is this, just a simple run through on how to set this thing up and how to use it is basically, this is a little portable unit. It's fairly small, very lightweight, and you have 3 ports here. One is for a, it says 15 volt DC, but you can use a 12 volt power supply. You do not want any type of wall power supply because you do not want any noise interference from the AC. It's too noisy and dirty. And so, and the center pin is positive, which is very important. And so, the power supply that we recommend, and like what John was using, and it's the only one that we're recommending, is this Talent Cell one. You can buy it on Amazon. This is a portable lithium-ion battery, so it has a lot of hours of running time once it's fully charged. And this is available on Amazon. If you go to sidebandgenerator.com and you scroll to the bottom of the page, there's a link to the different items that you need to make this work, and this is one of them. So this right here is a, and here's the power supply. Since the input is going to be isolated from the DC output here, you could probably have this plugged into the wall while you're using it, but we always recommend that you charge it first, completely disconnect it, and then you can connect this to the sideband generator. This is a 12 volt DC, 6,000 milliamp hour or 6 amp hour lithium-ion power supply. So this works really well.
The Qualcomm Tricord X Prize is all about revolutionizing healthcare and making it accessible to millions of people around the world.
Your average person will be able to take this device and diagnose their kid instead of taking them to the emergency room in the middle of the night. Or in a developing country where there's not enough health care, that people will be able to get access to health care by using this device.
Taiwan has a universal health care. Everyone is covered. And the healthcare quality is really good. But because you had to lower the cost for the whole system, the system is not sustainable. That eventually will collapse. I was raised up in Taiwan. We have good healthcare. But just from the visit I went to China in the remote area, it's really heartbreaking. Because in China, the estimate is close to 1 billion people who don't receive any medical care at all. Major hospital in the big city like Beijing, Shanghai, you see people on the sick bed is in the hallway, because there's too many patients there. And then if you go just away from the major city, they don't have any health care, and they will have to wait in line for days. The dynamical biomarker group is actually a research group in one of the universities in Taiwan. And we are very fortunate that HTC is our sponsor.
The current team has about 30 members. Some people are doing the software, hardware, user experience engineer, and some mechanical R&D design. Our team can do everything.
We work together, we have fun together, and we just have dinner, even have a dinner together. So I think I really like the team.
The first thing we do is to buy a toy, tricorder toy, real tricorder toy, to help us tell the story of what we are going to design. It's a future product, and it's a dream to make impossible things possible.
My name is Brennan. I love to go to the movies.
My name is Hope. Tennis is my favorite sport. My name is Carrie. I love to shop with my friends. We're kids, just like you.
Just like you.
Just like you. But I have cancer.
But I have cancer.
But I had cancer. I was diagnosed with acute lymphoblastic leukemia.
I was diagnosed with rhabdomyosarcoma. I was diagnosed with ALL, Ph positive.
These kids are fighting a disease called cancer. What is cancer? Well, there are many types of cancer, but all types of cancer have to do with one thing: the cells that make up our bodies. There are billions of cells that make up each person's body. Healthy cells grow and divide, but they know when to stop growing. Cancerous cells grow and divide too, but they grow too fast and divide out of control. Cancerous cells don't know when to stop growing.
Cancer is basically a cell that goes wrong and makes other cells do the same thing, which are cancer cells, and they multiply at a very rapid rate.
Cancer cells may clump together to form tumors. Tumors become so out of control that they destroy the normal cells around them, and this can make someone very sick.
How I would describe cancer is being sick for a very long time, like having the flu.
Leukemia is a type of cancer that affects the cells of our body that make up our blood. And when someone has leukemia, the white cells that help fight bacteria and viruses in our body grow out of control, and so they can no longer do a good job protecting our body.
When you have leukemia, your white cells don't work right, so it's easier for you to get sick.
As scary as all this sounds, kids can defeat cancer and go on to live healthy, normal lives. And while they're fighting cancer, kids can still do a lot of the same things that you do. Kids with cancer still want to play and hang out and go to school, just like you.
The technology I witnessed in the programs that were suppressive, suppressed still to this day, are things like anti-gravity, zero-point energy, a lot of 3D holographic imaging. Of course, there's a lot of devices that were reverse engineered by these corporations from government-retrieved downcraft and extraterrestrial DNA, along with hybrid DNA from these specimens that they use to make pharmaceuticals and to make cures with, and things like that. So there's always a positive and negative. They might make a gun with one thing, but the same device is used to kill cancer, on a different wavelength, but the same technology. So these things are all suppressed. So we don't have to live like we do now. We could actually have a lot of abundance as far as medical technologies, the cures for diseases, the abundance of water and food for everyone, and housing if these technologies were released. And of course, energy, free energy for everyone, and for all of our devices. So we wouldn't have to rely on gas, coal, and oil.
And he started to explain about how they took the Resonant virus and the bovine leukemia virus, and they put all this together. And I'm just a, scientific engineer, a research engineer, right? And I'm sitting there and I'm listening. This guy just terrorized me. Yeah, he was one of the best when it came to culturing out these little critters. I mean, Dr. Strucker and myself and a few others, of course, Gary, my brother, Gary sort of just stood off in the background and he listened to the whole story, but Strucker didn't just come over, and start blurting out stuff. Dr. Strucker had a suitcase full of information where he could show you point blank what was going on, and he said to me that, they killed my brother. And I'm going, what? And he goes, yeah, they killed my brother. He said, we got so close, and he knew that something happened. But of course, he didn't let that stop him on his research work. That's one thing about Dr. Strucker. I mean, Dr. Strucker, when he started on a project, he wasn't about to give up on anything that he was doing. And he's a brilliant guy when it comes to culturing these things out. Okay, now I'm back, and you can see that the oscillator's set to 3.214688 megahertz, which is in 1/10 of 1 meter of Rice frequency, but since it's sweeping, it's going to hit the correct one anyway. But the dot you can see ends up here being the most powerful sideband in the frequency. So as it generates, you can see how many times it steps the frequency on its way up. Okay, now The master power oscillator is the MOPA right here. And this tuning capacitor right here allows you to shift the frequency that I just did with the fundamental. The tube is an H-gas tube. That's this tube here, and it's on right now. It's generating. So actually it's the power oscillator's at about, I would say about 75 watts right now. And when you use the Fanatron tube, the capacitance is going to change. So that means that the MOPA, you'll have to change the frequency in the MOPA, and it's probably best to use this instrument right here. Now, one thing that I want to point out is the MOPA, it's very important on the audio signal that you generate. And once again, I'm going to tell you that none of these frequencies that's being generated here are in the audio range, because we're going from 50 hertz sweep to 150 kilohertz, or excuse me, 120 kilohertz on this one. So all RIFE'S frequencies known are in the radio band. There's not one of them that's an audio signal. So unless you generate exactly what you see right here, you don't have a RIFE machine. It's not even considered a RIFE machine.
Okay, so for connecting this comes with the battery. It comes with the battery charger, and it comes with the this little adapter cable here. And one of the ends here, you plug into the battery, and the other end you can plug right in here into the sideband generator. And then when you turn the battery on with this switch, you can see that it's operating properly when you see the light blinking. So this is putting out the 3.1 megahertz, and we still have to add the function, the sweep generator to it, and the electrodes. But this is showing that it's properly hooked up. You'll see a blue light that the battery is on, and this is pulsing, indicating that this is on and is running properly.